Have you ever faced someone blinded by arrogance, deaf to reason, and impossible to sway? The problem is not their mind but their ego. In this lesson, you will learn how to shatter it with precision, without ever lifting a blade. I am Niccolò Machiavelli, the observer of men, the architect of power. Today, I shall guide you through the art of breaking the most dangerous force in any man, his ego. I am Niccolò Machiavelli, the witness of men's folly, the recorder of their weakness, the one who strips away illusions and exposes the nature of power. Listen closely, for what I share with you today is not mere philosophy, but a weapon sharper than any sword. We shall speak of the ego, that fragile throne upon which every man sits, believing himself untouchable. If you learn to topple this throne, you shall hold dominion over even the proudest of adversaries. How many times have you faced a man who refuses reason, who guards his opinions as if they were divine law, who turns deaf when the truth confronts him? This is not intelligence resisting you. It is not logic defeating you. It is the swollen monster of his ego standing in your way. If you can dismantle this monster, he will not argue, he will not resist, he will yield. And I shall show you how. The ego is a man's fortress. It is built from bricks of pride, mortar of vanity, and guarded by soldiers of arrogance. Every man carries it, whether king or beggar. Some fortresses are great castles towering over nations, others are but huts that collapse with a whisper, but each man believes his fortress impenetrable. This belief is his downfall, for in truth, the ego is more fragile than glass, and once shattered, it leaves him naked, defenseless, and desperate for cover. Understand this: men will risk their wealth, their status, even their lives to protect the illusion of their importance. A man may endure poverty, betrayal, or pain, but to wound his pride is to touch his very soul. The ego is the root of resistance. It is why men refuse advice, why they cling to errors, why they fight battles already lost. They do not fight for survival. They fight for the image of themselves. And when you know this, you hold the lever to move them. Consider the proud noble who boasts of his lineage. Confront him with facts, and he resists. Confront him with reason, and he mocks. But quietly remind him of another whose house is older, whose bloodline runs purer, and suddenly his fortress trembles, for his pride is not fed by truth, but by comparison. His ego is a jealous beast, and when you turn its hunger against him, he grows weak. The soldier who believes himself invincible on the battlefield is not dangerous because of his skill, but because of the shield his ego has wrapped around him. Break that shield, show him doubt, expose him to failure before his peers, and his confidence will not merely crack, it will collapse entirely. He will fight worse than a coward, for he will not be fighting his enemy. He will be fighting the ghost of his own shattered pride. When men resist you, it is rarely their reason standing in your way. Reason is pliable, it bends, it negotiates, it finds compromise. But the ego resists endlessly, for it does not seek truth, it seeks worship. To confront the ego directly is folly, for you only strengthen its defenses. Attack a man's pride openly, and you give him the honor of battle, and he will resist you with every ounce of strength. But if you learn to work in shadows, to press quietly against the cracks, his fortress will crumble with barely a push. You must see the ego as both a weakness and an opportunity. A man of great pride is like a swollen bladder, full, inflated, impressive from afar, yet requiring only a small prick to burst. Watch closely how he reacts to silence when he expects praise, how he stiffens when another is celebrated, how his face tightens when doubt enters the air. These are the tremors in his fortress walls. When you observe them, you have found your entry. The truth is, control is never won through the body alone. You may chain a man's hands, but if his ego remains unbroken, he will dream of rebellion. You may silence his voice, but if his ego survives, it will speak within him until the day he strikes back. But if you break his ego, if you strike at the root of pride, he becomes not merely submissive, he becomes yours. His resistance dies, his will bends, and his very identity reshapes itself in the mold you provide. The rulers of history who endured, who mastered not just lands but men, were those who understood this truth. Caesar, who played with the vanity of senators. Alexander, who fed his soldiers' pride until it blinded them to exhaustion. Even the church, which promised men eternal crowns in heaven, while robbing them of earthly power. All of them wielded the ego of men as both leash and shackle. They did not confront pride head on, they redirected it, starved it, or broke it until it served their purpose. And so I tell you, the ego is not a treasure to admire nor a mystery to respect. It is the soft underbelly of every man, the root of his resistance, the fragile point upon which his entire being rests. If you can touch it, if you can crack it, if you can break it, you gain more than victory in a quarrel. You gain control over the very essence of the man himself. I am Niccolò Machiavelli, the chronicler of power, the student of human frailty, the one who peels away masks to reveal the trembling face beneath. Today, I shall show you a secret weapon that no blade can match, a method of revealing weakness in even the strongest of men. This weapon is not strength, not gold, not armies. It is vanity, and the moment you test it, the cracks appear. You have seen it often, though perhaps you did not recognize it. A man who speaks loudly until another receives more applause. A woman who smiles sweetly until a rival outshines her. A leader who boasts of his might until his achievements are questioned. What is it that makes their composure collapse? It is not reason, not truth, not justice. It is the fragile vanity they cling to. And if you wish to uncover weakness, you must press upon this delicate spot until it betrays them. Vanity is the perfume men wear to mask their insecurity. It is the fragile glass they polish daily, hoping others will admire the reflection within. Each man's vanity is different. For one, it is his beauty; for another, his intelligence; for another still, his power, his wealth, his reputation. But all vanity shares the same nature. It is delicate. It demands attention, and when neglected or contradicted, it collapses into rage or despair. By testing a man's vanity, you strike at his most vulnerable nerve without ever drawing blood. Observe the scholar who prides himself on his knowledge. He will lecture endlessly, drowning his audience in words, satisfied only when admiration shines in their eyes. Yet ask him a question that exposes the limit of his learning, or praise another thinker more highly in his presence, and you will see his calm vanish. He will argue, fumble, even contradict himself, all to defend the illusion that his wisdom is unmatched. His vanity has been tested, and in the cracks you now see his weakness. Consider the wealthy merchant, who cloaks himself in fine silks, who measures his worth not by his soul but by the gold in his coffers. He struts before others as if untouchable, but speak lightly of a poorer man's honesty, of a rival's influence, of the fleeting nature of fortune, and you will watch him stiffen, his pride wounded, for his vanity does not rest in truth, but in the illusion that he is adored for what he owns. In testing it, you force him to reveal the chains of insecurity that bind him. Even kings are not spared. History is filled with rulers who believed themselves immortal, divine, chosen by heaven. Yet the faintest whisper of doubt, the smallest hint that another might rule more justly, has driven them into paranoia and cruelty. Their vanity, when tested, exposes their weakness more surely than any assassin's blade. For vanity, when shaken, becomes a tyrant that rules them, robbing them of reason, pushing them into errors that make them easy prey. The beauty of vanity as a weapon is that it does not require open confrontation. You need not insult, you need not fight, you need not raise your voice. A silence where praise is expected, a faint comparison, a question left unanswered. These small acts are enough to press against the fragile glass. And when the cracks spread, you learn more about your opponent than he wishes you to know. You learn what he fears, what he clings to, what he cannot endure losing. That knowledge is worth more than any victory in battle. Men will claim to be strong, but vanity proves otherwise. The one who prides himself on honor may betray it the moment he feels unrecognized. The one who boasts of courage may tremble when another is called braver. The one who parades his generosity may grow cold if another is praised for kindness. Each vanity, when tested, betrays the truth strength was but an illusion, and beneath it lies weakness waiting to be exploited. You must become a master of observation. Watch closely when men are celebrated. See whose face shines with envy. See who stiffens at another's applause. See who rushes to reclaim the spotlight. These are the signs of vanity, and in those moments, their weakness is revealed to you without a word. Once you know it, you hold the power to bend them, for nothing drives a man more desperately than the need to restore his wounded vanity. The testing of vanity is not cruelty. It is strategy. Men reveal more of themselves in their envy than in their pride. The jealous glance, the forced smile, the trembling hand, these betrayals of the body cannot be hidden. They confess the truth of weakness far louder than words. And once you have seen it, you need not wonder how to move them. Their own vanity becomes the string you pull, and they dance unwillingly to the tune you play. Thus, weakness does not declare itself in battle cries or speeches. It whispers through vanity, that fragile glass every man polishes, but cannot protect. To test it is to expose the hidden fault line in his armor, the point where his strength dissolves, the place where he is most human, most vulnerable, most easily broken. I am Niccolò Machiavelli, the student of human weakness, the one who has watched men rise through cunning and fall through folly. Today I reveal to you an art so refined that few recognize it until it is too late. The art of humiliation. Not the crude humiliation of public insult, which provokes resistance, but the subtle humiliation that seeps quietly into a man's pride until it bends him to your will. This method, when mastered, becomes more powerful than any weapon, for it conquers not the body, but the very spirit. Have you ever noticed that when you openly attack a man's pride, he resists with fury? Insult him and you awaken his rage. Confront him directly and he sharpens his defenses. But when you humiliate him subtly, when the knife is slipped between his pride and his vanity without him realizing, he crumbles. The question is not whether you can defeat him in open combat. The question is whether you can make him defeat himself. The nature of man is such that he cannot endure shame. Pride is the armor he wears before the world, and open humiliation strikes at that armor so visibly that it forces him into battle. He cannot allow himself to appear weak, so he resists, sometimes to the point of madness. But when the humiliation is subtle, when it comes clothed in politeness, in laughter, in silence even, then it slips past his defenses. He feels the sting but cannot strike back, for to resist would expose his insecurity more openly. It is this hesitation that allows you to rule him. Imagine a man boasting loudly of his achievements. To confront him, to call him a liar, would ignite his anger and sharpen his pride. But instead, you smile and turn your praise to another's smaller, but genuine success. He is not insulted directly, but in the shadow of your words, his greatness shrinks. The room sees it. He feels it, but he cannot protest without seeming petty. This is subtle humiliation, not a sword drawn in battle, but a needle slipped quietly beneath the skin. Or picture the soldier who prides himself on bravery. To accuse him of cowardice openly is dangerous. He will fight you to prove otherwise, but to ask another man for protection, while the soldier stands nearby, to tell a story of courage where his name is absent, is to wound him without a single blow. He feels his pride diminish, but if he raises his voice, he betrays the wound himself. Thus you leave him trapped in silence, humiliated without defense. The power of subtle humiliation lies in its invisibility. Others see it as harmless, a passing remark, a shift in attention. Only the victim feels its sting, and because it is hidden, he cannot rally allies to his side. He suffers alone, and the more he suffers in silence, the weaker he becomes. His mind circles the wound again and again, feeding his insecurity until it becomes a chain around his spirit. You must also understand that subtle humiliation works not only in words but in actions. Silence when praise is expected, a pause too long before agreement, a smile that lingers at the wrong moment. These are sharper than insults. The proud man anticipates applause, and when it does not come, the emptiness devours him. The arrogant man expects agreement, and when your pause suggests doubt, his certainty crumbles. The vain man expects admiration, and when your laughter seems misplaced, his reflection shatters. Each gesture, small and unnoticed by others, becomes a blade that cuts deep into his pride. The wise ruler, the cunning manipulator, uses this weapon sparingly. Too much humiliation, and the man will turn desperate, lashing out like a wounded beast. But when used with precision, it makes him pliable, eager to restore his dignity, desperate for the recognition you withhold. You become the keeper of his pride, the one who can wound it or heal it, and so he bends to your will not by force, but by choice. History is filled with rulers who understood this truth, the clever senator who dismissed an opponent not with insult, but with laughter, leaving him red-faced yet unable to reply. The courtier who spoke so highly of another, in the presence of the king, forcing the monarch to feel his throne wobble beneath him, without a single direct challenge. The general who praised his soldiers, yet left one unnamed, knowing the omission would burn deeper than any harsh word. These men wielded subtle humiliation as an art, conquering without open battle, commanding without open threat. And so it is clear open attack makes enemies, subtle humiliation makes subjects. The insulted man fights, the humiliated man obeys. The insult is a spark that lights resistance. The subtle humiliation is a poison that seeps quietly, weakening the victim from within. To master this art is to hold the ability to bend men without striking them, to conquer their pride without war, to enslave their will while they still believe themselves free. I am Niccolò Machiavelli, the dissector of men's ambitions, the cold witness to their pride, the voice that speaks not to flatter you, but to arm you with truth. Today I bring you to the final act of power, the breaking of the ego, for when pride collapses, when vanity lies in ruins, the man himself becomes clay in your hands. He no longer fights, no longer resists, he obeys. You have seen it before, though perhaps without naming it. A proud man silenced, no longer able to argue. A rival who once defied you now eager to please. A leader who once seemed untouchable suddenly bowing to another's will. What has changed? Not his strength, not his body, not his mind, but his ego. Once broken, it drags him down, and whoever holds the power to restore it becomes his master. The ego is the crown each man wears. It tells him he is important, worthy, unique, unchallenged. While that crown rests firm, he walks with arrogance, he speaks with confidence, he resists any attempt to sway him. But when the crown is knocked from his head and shattered, he becomes desperate, for without it, he feels less than nothing. This desperation is the leash with which you lead him. The broken ego does not simply weaken a man, it transforms him. Before, he was a lion, roaring to protect his pride. After, he becomes a dog, eager for scraps of recognition. He who once stood as your enemy now stands as your servant. For in you he sees the only hand that can lift him back to glory. His obedience is not born of love, nor of loyalty, but of necessity. He must cling to the one who shattered him, for only through you can he rebuild the image of himself. Consider the scholar stripped of his certainty. When his knowledge is exposed as limited, when another receives the applause he craves, his ego breaks. He no longer argues, he seeks reassurance. And if you give it sparingly, in measured doses, he follows you like a pupil to a master, hoping you will restore his dignity. His obedience is not a choice. It is survival. Think of the proud warrior humbled before his peers. Once fearless, he falters when his courage is questioned subtly. When another is called braver, when his deeds are met with silence, his ego breaks, and in its absence, he becomes restless, desperate for proof that he is still worthy. In this desperation, he clings to whoever recognizes him, even if that recognition comes from the very hand that wounded him. Thus he bends, not because he wishes to, but because he must. The broken ego enslaves not only men of weakness but men of strength. Indeed, the stronger the pride, the more total the obedience once it collapses. For the mighty man has further to fall, and when he crashes, he clutches at anything to lift him again. A king whose throne wobbles will obey flatterers he once despised. A general stripped of victory will bow to advisors he once ignored. Their broken egos drive them into chains willingly. because obedience promises the restoration of what rebellion cannot give. And here lies the art. Do not shatter a man's ego only to leave him in ruins, for a broken man without direction is dangerous, reckless, unpredictable. Instead, place yourself as the healer of the very wound you inflicted. Break him, then offer him the balm. Humiliate him, then grant him a taste of restored honor. In this rhythm of pain and relief, you make him dependent. He becomes obedient not merely once, but continually, for he will seek again and again the restoration only you can provide. History reveals this pattern with cruel clarity. The church broke men with guilt, then offered salvation, binding them in obedience for life. Rulers humiliated nobles, then granted them titles anew, ensuring their loyalty through gratitude for restoration. Generals punished their soldiers harshly, then rewarded them with honor, making them march not out of fear alone, but out of a broken pride that only their commander could mend. These were not acts of cruelty for cruelty's sake. They were strategies of control. A broken ego creates silence where once there was defiance. It replaces rebellion with obedience, doubt with dependence, arrogance with servitude. The man who once looked you in the eye now looks down, waiting for your command. The rival who once stood against you now seeks your approval. The opponent who once resisted now clings to you as the source of his identity. This is the ultimate victory, not over the body, not even over the mind, but over the soul itself. I am Niccolò Machiavelli, and now you see the truth laid bare before you. The ego is the fortress of every man, built of pride, guarded by vanity, defended with arrogance. Yet no fortress is unbreakable. To test it is to reveal weakness. To humiliate it subtly is to make it tremble. To shatter it entirely is to make its owner obedient to your will. This is not war with swords, nor conflict with armies, but the quiet, precise domination of the human spirit. Master this, and you master men themselves.